Welcome back to another episode of No Shame with Shane. I'm your host, Shane Fordham, with all the shameless sports takes. And as you can see, I got my boys with me, Jeremiah Williams with Saber Sports and Marcus from Marcus Talk Sports. Guys, how we doing? I know it's been a crazy offseason, but how y'all feeling?
I'm doing good. I just want to let the people know we're 20 minutes late because Shane and I had to teach Jay Will how to work his phone for 15 minutes.
We're actually late because
I said 8:15 and I was here at 8:07 actually.
I was here.
So we could have been 10 minutes late, but we're 20 minits late because you don't know how to use Instagram.
Yeah, Jerry, I'm not gonna lie, that was bad.
Blaming me.
That was hard to watch.
Used Instagram before.
That's crazy Jerry strays right there. But
You know how to slide in DMs though. We don't got to teach him how to do that.
Let's not put Jerry out there like that.
That's his problem. That's the problem.
Right. Well, speaking of sliding DMs, Howie Roseman has done a lot of sliding in DMs this offseason. The way he's been recruiting guys, whether it's through free agency, through trades, a lot of offseason moves. I mean, looking at some of the names that the Eagles have departed with this offseason. I mean, Darius Slay is now in Pittsburgh. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is now a Texan. Josh Sweat is now a Cardinal. Milton Williams is now a Patriot. Kenneth Gainwell is now a Steeler. Mekhi Becton is on the Chargers. I mean, the list goes on. Guys, I know you guys aren't Eagles fans, but should Eagles fans be concerned with all of these sudden moves?
Yes.
I don't know. You tell me. You're the fan.
Let's start, Jerry, let's start with you, and then we'll hit Marcus.
So you know how I feel about the Eagles. Originally I didn't trust them. Well, more specifically Jalen Hurts, but he got it done, so respect. I got to say that first. Now, should fans be concerned? Absolutely. You guys just obviously won a championship. Congrats again. Fly, Eagles, fly. But at the end of the day, you guys just lost some assets. When you're a team of the Eagles caliber, you rely on, experience, guys that's obviously been there before, guys that's just recently got it done. So when you remove a guy like, Darius Slay, who, is a solid corner, who, can, give the secondary great strength, he's experienced, he understands what it takes to win. When you remove a guy like that, a guy like Gardner-Johnson, who is a nickel corner who can, can tackle great turnovers, that's frightening. That's concerning because when you remove those players, it's like, okay, you have to bring replacements. Are those replacements going to be like them? And the answer is no. So overall, the Eagles should be concerned for right now.
Marcus, what you think?
I don't think I've ever known Jay Will to be as wrong as he was just there. Listen, the Eagles defense, right? They've lost a lot of key pieces, but you can't act like the Eagles don't have them. Like they're not the only team in the NFL that has superstars at all three levels, right? You started the defensive line. You're talking about Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. You move back to the linebacking core. You've got Nolan Smith and Zach Bond, who they just signed for a massive extension. Then you go to the secondary. They have a Cooper DeJean and a Quinion Mitchell. Like this is still going to be a top 5 defense in the NFL. This is still going to be probably the best defense in the NFL. This is still a defense that is run and orchestrated by the best defensive mind in football right now, Vic Fangio. He stole that accolade from Steve Spagnuolo in the Super Bowl. So I don't really understand. Okay, I understand the concern, right? When you let C.J. Gardner-Johnson go, when you let Darius Slay walk out the front door, when obviously BG retires today and all this other stuff. But let's not act like the Eagles are all of a sudden bereft of talent. But more importantly, let's not act like over the past 2 or 3 years, we haven't watched Howie Roseman take very personally the job of being the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles. And let's not act like he hasn't been on a generational run drafting talent for both sides of the ball, but especially for the defense. So if you're concerned about how good the Eagles defense is going to be this season, then maybe you're just not fully tapped in, because as far as my eyes can tell me, this is still going to be one of, if not the very best defense in the NFL this season.
Yeah, Marcus, I 100% agree. I think there's a select few guys in the NFL where you just can't bet against them, right? You got the in Pat we trust. A lot of times it was in Josh Allen we trust. Specific guys who you can't count against. Howie Roseman belongs in that category. He's not on the field, but he's one of those figures in the NFL that you just should never bet against. He's a guy that is, I mean, he's arguably the best GM in the NFL, really in all of sports. I think Howie Roseman belongs in that conversation. And like you said, time after time again, he makes season-winning, game-winning moves in the offseason to bring new life to the Eagles. And I think we're seeing a perfect example of that this offseason. You know, a lot of us Eagles fans, you know, we win the Super Bowl. Now it's okay, how do we keep this exact same group together so we can do it again? And sometimes that's not always the best option, you know, and I think a good example of that was James Bradberry. You know, he was an elite corner the year we went to the Super Bowl. The next year was a complete decline. And I don't mean to slander James Bradberry's name because he still had a positive contribution to the squad, even though he wasn't really like a starter caliber player anymore. But in terms of performance, you guys understand the example that I'm trying to make. You know, sometimes the same exact group isn't always the best group to move forward with. Now, really, the only move that I was mad at was CJ Gardner-Johnson. I was mad at the CJ Gardner-Johnson trade because, you know, every year we've had CJ Gardner-Johnson, we have been a premier defense, elite defense, a Super Bowl caliber defense, even if you will. But at the same time, I do understand it. You know, they're moving in a younger direction. And, you know, even with the guys that we have lost, Marcus, I think you hit this on the head. They still have the pieces, the elite pieces at that to still form an elite defense. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis on the front line are still an elite defense. I think that this is probably the deepest that the D-line has ever been, you know, with especially acquiring Azeez Ojulari from the Giants, Josh Uche, you know, kind of moving back and forth between Kansas City and New England last year. And then we still got Jalex Hunt, who I think could really be a starter this year. Got Moro Ojomo also on the interior line, going to be a rotational piece. So, and that's just the D-line alone. You know, still the secondary is elite. We still have elite linebackers. So with that being in consideration, I feel like once you see the pieces that were moved, it allowed Howie to use that money in different places. But
I like both of you guys' point. I can respect, you know, Roseman making those decisions because oftentimes, and Shane, you mentioned it on the head, oftentimes when you win a championship, particularly in football, you try to keep that exact same roster. And it's like, well, let's create some changes so that, you know, we can get younger, we can get faster, and, you know, bring in guys that we need again, you know, to repeat possibly. So I can respect Roseman in that regard. I just feel like, you know, getting rid of, you know, Gardner-Johnson definitely will hurt the most, you know, and Gainwell as well, because you have that, obviously that depth at the running back position was there. Now it's like, okay, you know, how are we going to replace that? So that's what I'm looking forward to see, you know. Now, with those new additions, right, you know, they can replace the ones that's lost, but let's see how they, you know, adjust to the Eagles' way.
Marcus, you got anything?
I have nothing else to say.
I mean, even if you're not looking at the team, I'm especially not concerned because, I mean, we know we're going to make it out the division regardless. I mean, even with the Commanders being as good as they are, like, I still think the Eagles are a better team than the Commanders. The Cowboys right now are depleted, in my opinion. Zach Martin retiring, DeMarcus Lawrence going to the Seahawks. And then the Giants, I mean, I know they're still the draft. So to be fair, they're still the draft. But even after the draft, I mean, I would be shocked if the Giants make some huge turnaround.
Ain't nobody worried about the Giants.
Draft.
Ain't nobody worried about the Giants or the Cowboys. So you don't have to worry about them too. The only team you really honestly have to worry about in the NFC is the Commanders. Like,
I wouldn't say the only team. And NFC, like conference-wise, I wouldn't say the only team. Division for sure, but I wouldn't say only team conference-wise.
And the Rams. In your conference, you're fine. In your division, you're good. But the only team you have to worry about is the Rams and the Commanders.
Marcus, you were looking at me kind of funny when I was. What you had something on your mind for sure? What'd you say?
You're just speaking so confidently about a team that's in a division who hasn't had a repeat champion since the three of us were all in diapers. So like, I understand that the Philadelphia Eagles are the Super Bowl champions, and I understand that this is the youngest defense in the NFL that just got younger. But let's also not forget that the coordinators are gone. Like, Jalen Hurts is about to have another season offensively where the offensive coordinator he had last season is not the one he has this season. So that's a component of this as well. I'm not sitting here telling you that the Eagles aren't the best team in the division because I think they are. But I don't think that we should just sit here after watching the run that the Commanders just had and just completely write them off and say there's no reason to be concerned. Like Jayden Daniels, huh?
You think the Eagles are going to struggle with the new offensive coordinator?
No, I don't think they're going to struggle because I think that on both sides of the ball, they're very, very talented. I do think that they're going to start slow. I don't think that we're going to see the Eagles come out here and just light the world on fire of these first couple weeks of the season. I think it'll take a month, maybe a month and a half for them to really get going. That's not to say they'll drop 4 games or drop 6 games or whatever the case may be, but the Eagles are not going to set the world on fire to start the season. I don't think there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period there, as is always the case when you're changing over coordinators, right? As has always been the case over the course of Jalen Hurts' tenure. Right, they started 13-0 one year or 12-1 another year, whatever the case may be, but they still started a bit slow, even though they were winning all these games. And again, the Washington Commanders, and I am by no means a Commanders fan, but we have to acknowledge what the Commanders have done. Right, the Commanders took a team with very little expectations to the NFC Championship game. Yeah, they got their teeth kicked down their throat in the NFC Championship game against Philly, but that is still a great feat for a team that is now way ahead of schedule. Right, this is now a Jayden Daniels who is 1 year of NFL experience under his belt. Right, I know we're going to talk about it later. Deebo Samuel, whether you like him or you don't, you do have to acknowledge the fact that Deebo Samuel is still a very lucrative piece to add to this offense because aside from Terry McLaurin, you didn't really know where you were getting offensive production at the wide receiver position outside of Terry McLaurin. 1 week it could be Dyami Brown, who's no longer there. Another week it could have been Olamide Zaccheaus, right? Like things were always fluctuating. Now you have, at least you know for sure, it's Terry McLaurin and it's Deebo Samuel. You have that certainty there, right? The O-line still needs work. Yes, they did let Jonathan Allen go and come over to Minnesota. That still needs to be addressed a little bit as well. But defensively, I think for the Commanders, the focus in the draft will be the defense, right? This secondary has to it has to improve. It has to be better. There's certainly reasons. There's room for growth there, but I don't think that we should just be all the Eagles are going to dominate and the Eagles are going to win the division. When again, this is the only division, if I'm not mistaken, this is the only division to go this long without a repeat winner. They haven't had a repeat winner since before the divisions were realigned in 2002 to how we know them right now. So I understand the excitement, but let's not just act like the Commanders aren't going to be a threat to the Eagles.
Right. And that's scary because I think we could possibly see the Eagles and the Commanders again. And you mentioned Samuel is a huge piece. That is a huge addition because he's essentially a one-option guy. And like Marcus said, like you have a guy in Jayden Daniels who's willing to sling the rock. He's now getting experience. He's not a rookie anymore. Granted, now teams are able to really key on him, they have film on him now, so let's see what he can do. But the Commanders overall, besides the defense, they're the biggest threat to the Eagles right now.
I'm going to respond to both of your points, try to keep this as simple as I can.
Don't say that.
He's about to say something absolutely hilarious.
Hear me out. Listen, hear me out.
Say something hilarious, bro.
Marcus, you make a good point. There has been that's what this division is known for being extremely competitive, never having a repeat winner. But at the same time, I do think that, and that's not me writing the Commanders off when I say I think the Eagles could win the division. Like I said, I think the Commanders, and I've been on record saying this before they even had that crazy run towards the end of the season. I think the Commanders will be the Eagles' main competition in the conference, let alone the division. But if you win a race, whether the race is tight or by a landslide, at the end of the day, a dub is a dub. So no matter what the journey is getting to that point, the end result is going to be the same. I feel like the Eagles will win the division this year for sure. But at the same time, I'm not saying that it's going to be just because the Commanders are trash. Now, I do think that the Commanders will be competitive, but at the same time, I don't think it'll be. I don't see the Commanders beating out the Eagles this year in the division. But now, too, you talk about the Commanders are going to be a tougher team to beat for the Eagles this year because they got Deebo. I'm not scared of Deebo. Let's be frank. I'm not scared of Deebo. Let's be real.
Didn't
I'm
say
not
that.
scared. I'm not scared. No. I know you didn't say that. Jerry said that. I'm responding to both of y'all right
I
now.
would say he. I would say
I'm not
Neither of
scared
us
of
said
Debo.
that. Neither of us.
I know you didn't say that.
This sounds like some. This
I'm
sounds like
responding to you. I'm responding to
some
you.
undercover
Now I'm
people
responding to
said.
Jerry.
I didn't.
I'm not
Neither of
scared.
us said that.
I didn't
Neither of us said that.
Jerry did say that.
No, you have to. He's a weapon. You have to fear him.
I'm not saying he's not a weapon, but at the same time,
Okay.
up against the Eagles defense, I'm not worried about Debo. Like Debo isn't like I'm more scared of Terry than I am Debo. Like in terms of going against the Commanders, I'm way more scared of Terry right now than I am Debo. Like I do think, however, that if there is anybody who can make anybody look dangerous, it's Jaden Daniels for sure. But at the same time, I don't think the Commanders are killing us with Debo Samuel. I just don't.
Can I just say, just real quick? I don't want to.
Go ahead, Marcus. Go ahead, Marcus.
Just real quick. The last time Debo Samuel played the Philadelphia Eagles, he had 4 catches for a buck 16 and 2 touchdowns. So I understand the point. Like if the point is Debo Samuel isn't like that guy, got you. Because I don't think Debo Samuel's top 10. I don't think he's top 15. He might not even be a top 20 receiver if I sit down and I think about it. But let's not act like
what year was that? What year was that, Marcus?
Act like the last time Debo Samuel
what year was that?
with the Philadelphia Eagles.
What year was that?
It's 2023. So season
Okay.
before last.
So we're talking. Okay, so we're talking sometime. This wasn't this past season, right?
Well,
This wasn't after Debo. This wasn't number 1 Debo. This wasn't when Debo gained about 15 pounds. Looked like he belongs in the backfield as opposed
Debo
to
wasn't number 1
in
receiver.
the slot or an X.
Am I missing something?
You said what?
Debo wasn't number 1 receiver for.
He definitely was.
No. You misheard what I said. I said 2023 Debo is not the same as 2024 Debo. Those are two different guys.
2024 Debo was hurt.
Two different guys. Okay,
Right.
so that's what I'm saying. So we're
2024
talking about.
Debo
So we're talking about a guy that is.
Debo
We're
Samuel,
talking about a guy that is coming off of injuries.
the last time
He's
played
clearly
fully
gained some
healthy,
weight over the course of his rehab phase,
That's fine.
and his production when he
last
was
time-
healthy, his production wasn't there.
The
So
last
we're
time-
talking about two different
the
guys right now.
last time Debo Samuel was fully healthy and at the best of his capabilities, he had 4 for a buck 16 and 2 tuds. That's all I'm saying.
This is 2 years ago.
Hey,
This is
listen.
2 years
I
ago.
what you're saying, Mark.
It doesn't matter how long ago it was.
It does matter.
Healthy.
That definitely matters. This is 2 years ago.
I get what he's saying.
Well,
He's basically like he has the Eagles number in a sense.
I'm not saying I'm not saying Debo is going to be trash. But first of all, that's also the same year we had James Bradbury starting at the opposite corner.
That was
That was against a defense that led the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns allowed. That is a totally different unit they would be seeing this year. What did Debo do when he saw us in 2022? What did Debo do when he saw us in 2022? The last time our defense was elite.
I don't know.
It's totally different.
That has nothing to do with me. Now you're moving
Totally different outputs. Totally different outputs. We're not talking about the same matchup here. Let's take that into account.
Well, hold on. Let's just run through it. Okay. You didn't play Debo in 2022, so let's talk about that. The game before that in 2021.
I'm sorry. NFC chip. We didn't play Debo in the NFC chip to get to the bowl. We didn't kick Debo out the way to get to the bowl. We didn't kick him out the way to get to Arizona. Am I tripping?
I'm talking about the regular season, brother.
Well, you said play Debo. We did play Debo in 2022.
All I know is
I know Brock was out.
The last 2 times Debo Samuel was on the same football field. Matter of fact, in your house, actually, in the link. The last 2 times he stepped foot in the link, he had a combined 10 catches for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Debo's not doing that. He's not doing that against the Eagles this year.
Okay,
he's not doing. You're talking about victories from 2 years ago.
Put a number on it.
You're talking about victories from 2 years ago.
Put a number on it. Put a number on it.
What you mean, betting money?
Actually, I don't even want a number on it.
I don't bet. I don't gamble.
I don't want a number on it. Shane,
I don't gamble.
Shane, that's fine. That's fine.
I don't
have
gamble.
to bet money. Let's do this. The Commanders and the Eagles are probably going to play each other 3 times. Probably they'll play each other 3 times.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
They'll be the NFC Championship game.
Here's the thing. This is what I'll do. I have done this before, and I have no problem doing it again. And it's on the internet for the world to see. So if you don't believe me, you can check it. Okay. I am willing to, if after 3 attempts against the Eagles, Debo doesn't crack 100 yards, whatever Eagles jersey you want me to wear, Shane, I'll come on your show after the season.
I bet you this. I don't got him cracking 90 in any of the 3 matchups.
Fine. Fine, we'll go 90.
Oh, now I'm cracking
If
90.
Debo doesn't crack
You're
90.
But
Wow.
you gotta remember, Debo is not a
If Debo
Debo
doesn't
is not
crack
this
90,
deep threat
one
guy.
time-
He's
listen,
not. That's not the type of receiver he is.
So here we go. If Debo doesn't crack 90 one time, I'll come back on this show at the end of the season wearing whatever Eagles jersey you want to wear.
Hurts.
But if Debo cracks 90 one time,
Actually,
I need to see you in a Debo Samuel jersey.
If Debo doesn't crack 90, if Debo doesn't crack 90 in either of the 2 to 3 matchups, you got to wear a Quinion Mitchell jersey out of respect, because you're disrespecting Quinion right now. If you think Debo is putting up over 90 receiving yards on Quinion Mitchell, I don't think he's going to do it on Keely Ringo.
So I've agreed on
my either one.
So if he does, I need to see you in a Debo Samuel Commanders jersey. I need to see that. Thank you. And we have a witness. And whoever else is watching, we have witnesses to this. We have witnesses to this.
This is the easiest, bro. This is the easiest bet I've ever made. If you, you really think Debo is going to force the Eagles defense like this?
Listen to me.
And I'm not saying, bro. Let me be clear.
I am undefeated when it comes to jersey bets. I don't lose them.
You ain't never made a bet against me. Okay. That record's about to change. You ain't made a record against me. Let me say this. I am not saying Debo is just going to be totally trashed this season. I'm not saying that. I think this was a great system for him to be in. I think it's a great fit for him as a player. I just think with the Eagles defense, with how stacked these guys look now, even with the departures, with how stacked these guys look now at every level, from D-line, from the linebackers, from the secondary, I don't think Debo is going to be a deep threat. He hasn't been much hit, and that's not what he's known for. Even in his prime, he was never known for being a deep threat. He's not going to be much of a catch and run get it at short yardage and take one and break one, because of how good our linebackers are. Zach Bond and Kobe Dean are strapping that. They're shutting that down. Coop is picking him up. Coop's going to dump him the same way he did Derrick Henry. And then our secondary alone, there's just no way over Quinion Mitchell, Keely Ringo, Reed Blankenship, Cooper DeJean, even if they put Adoree Jackson in, there's just no, bro. There's just no way. I don't see it.
Just a quick question: would you say that Debo Samuel is better than Olamide Zaccheaus at this point in his career? Would you say that? Debo Samuel is better than Olamide Zaccheaus.
Last year, no.
I didn't say last.
I'm saying overall, assuming
overall, assuming they're both at their best, which receivers better?
They're both in the best shape of their life. No, of course, Debo overall in the best shape of his life is better than.
How do you see Debo this year?
So we're not gonna act like Olamide Zaccheaus in December, then spank the Eagles for what was it, like 5 for like 70 and 2 touchdowns? You don't think Debo can get 20 more yards than Olamide Zaccheaus did? Against this daunted Philadelphia secondary that you're banging your chest about, Olamide Zaccheaus had 570 yards and 2 touchdowns.
You're forgetting Zaccheaus. You're forgetting Zaccheaus was an Eagle the year prior. So he's very familiar playing against the squad. He knows how the team works like that. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but at the same time, that is totally different. And then last year, Zaccheaus is still more of a deep threat than Debo was last year.
So you keep
Zaccheaus did a great job of finding holes in the defense.
Okay, so let's just take the bias. Let's take the bias out of it, because you're really starting to get me here. Let's just think for a second. Okay.
What is my bias?
So, listen to me. Okay, let's just be respectable young men here. Let's think about this for a second. Okay, you're saying that Olamide Zaccheaus went for 5 catches, 70 yards, and 2 touchdowns because he was familiar with the team. But Debo Samuel in his career,
with Jaden Daniels,
but Debo Samuel in his career has played more games against the Eagles than Olamide Zaccheaus has in his.
All right, so can I respond to that?
And he's played better than all of them. You keep talking about Debo Samuel last year. I'm not talking about Debo Samuel last year. I'm talking about a healthy Debo Samuel in 2025 who is not going to be the focal point of any game plans this season. That's the part that you're failing to acknowledge. It will be different if the Commanders are bringing Debo on to be the number one guy. They're bringing him on to be the number two guy behind Terry McLaurin. So you're talking about Quinyon. Last I checked, wouldn't Quinyon be going head up with Terry McLaurin on the other side of the field? Isn't that what will be happening? Is that not what will be happening? Quinyon will be over there with Terry.
Is this where I can answer your question, or is that meant to be rhetorical? That's all I want to know. Can I answer the question that was addressed to me, or was it rhetorical? When can I jump in here? When can I jump in? First of all, here's my thing, right?
Bro, I'm just asking.
Here's my thing. First of all, Debo on the Commanders and Olamide Zaccheaus on the Commanders have two different roles. Zaccheaus was maybe the number 3.
Answer my question.
Hold on, let me finish. I'm answering the question. Let me finish. I'm answering the question.
Answer the question.
I'm answering the question.
You can't
answering the question. This is answering the question. If you knew what the Commander scheme was last year, you would know Zaccheaus was the 3 to 4 pass catcher on the offense, maybe even 4 if you count Zach Ertz. Obviously, Terry was number 2. Zach Ertz and Dyami Brown switched between number 2 priority. Zaccheaus was like really 4, hanging in that 4, maybe moved up to 3 in the playoffs. Debo is going to be the number 2. Like you said, there is no Dyami Brown this year. There is no Noah this year. It's literally Terry and Luke McCaffrey. And Luke McCaffrey is not going to be the number 2 over Debo. So Debo is going to have way more focus on him within this offense than Zaccheaus did last year on the Commanders' offense.
That wasn't the comparison that was made, though. That wasn't the comparison.
That is the comparison. You said if Zaccheaus could do this on the Commanders last year, you don't think Debo could do this on the Commanders this year? And that's my answer. There's going to be, you said, first of all, they are bringing Debo in to be a focal point of the offense. This is their 1-2 punch. Terry McLaurin and Debo are going to be their 1-2 punch.
Shane, you was off today?
Yeah, it was off.
You was off today? Did you work today, Shane?
No, I was off today.
You was off today. Okay, so you didn't clean your ears this morning. Got you. Let's start over. Okay. Debo Samuel. Debo Samuel.
What am I saying that's wrong?
Debo Samuel during his time in San Francisco. I got you, Jerry. Debo Samuel during his time in San Francisco, up until the last year or 2 of his tenure, Debo Samuel was the number 1 guy. When defenses were planning to play the 49ers, they were planning to stop Debo Samuel. This is before Christian McCaffrey got there, and then they really became run heavy. They were planning for Debo Samuel.
Now we're talking about 6 years ago.
Now we're
talking 5 years ago.
You have to bring it up.
We're talking 4, 5, 6 years ago.
No matter how long ago it was, the point that I'm making is this is no different than George Pickens now in Pittsburgh. You think now that DK Metcalf is there, George Pickens is still going to be the number 1 guy that people are prepping for in these defensive war rooms? No, they're going to shift their attention to DK Metcalf. And so we expect George Pickens to eat and be better because of that. Debo Samuel is entering a Commander's offense where he's not going to be the number 1 guy. He's not going to be the guy that people are focusing on the most. The goal, the objective of this, of defenses is going to be, as long as Terry McLaurin doesn't beat us, we can live with whatever else happens. As long as Terry McLaurin doesn't go off, we can live with whatever else happens. And if you can sit here, Shane, honestly, and objectively tell me that a second-string Debo Samuel can't, in 3 attempts, get at least 90 yards. I'm not talking about score a touchdown. I'm not saying catch an 80-yard bomb. I'm not saying get 10 catches. I'm saying 90 yards as the number 2 receiver on one of what will likely be the most dynamic offenses in the league this season. I have questions for you, bro. I have genuine questions for you. If you don't think a former number 1 receiver can move down the depth chart and still get 90 yards. I watched Smith-Schuster get 90 yards in Pittsburgh like it was nothing when AB was there. Like, what are we talking about?
Time out. First of all, you're saying you're talking about Debo. You're talking about Debo and San Francisco as Brandon Ayuk didn't exist. as if George Kittle didn't exist. Like
Who was the number one passer?
The field wasn't super stretched when they had. But I'm saying, first of all, if anything, for the second half in Debo's career in San Francisco, after Brandon Ayuk got more accustomed to the offense, I mean, at least Brock Purdy, that was Brock Purdy's favorite target. So Brandon Ayuk got more targets than Debo. So you're talking about Debo being the focal point for defenses. They didn't have to worry about Debo killing them down the field. That was Brandon Ayuk.
Specifically during
George Kittle was arguably more of a deep threat than Debo in San Fran.
Specifically during the time when Debo Samuel was the number one guy. Y'all Philly fans got a hard time listening, bro.
They do. They do. And that's the problem.
When Debo was the
number one guy.
When Debo was the sole number one, you're talking about a 49ers offense from 5 years ago when he was the sole guy. If we're talking more recent, within 3 to 2 years, Brandon Ayuk was the one who defenses, at least over top, deep down the field, that's the guy they had to pay more attention to. So don't act like Debo was the sole focus of the 49ers offense. And then they had Christian McCaffrey for a full season the year before that. So what are we talking about right now? You had to worry about Brandon Ayuk down the field. You had to worry about Christian McCaffrey doing anything, whether it was running the ball or being helpful in the pass. You had George Kittle that was either at the tight end spot or in the slot. Like Debo was not the focal point for the 49ers offense for the past 2 to 3 years. Right. And then last year, he couldn't stay healthy enough to stay on the field. So what are we talking about? You're acting like Debo is used to being the guy on a team. Like, this is honestly a similar...
The same 2021 year when I told you that Debo went into your trap and got 90 yards on your defense, on this daunting secondary.
We had the worst defense in the league. We had the worst defense in the NFL. It's not going to be like that this year.
But here's the thing, though. You keep trying to hammer home this idea that Debo wasn't the focal point of offenses within 6 years, as if we didn't watch Debo Samuel 3 years ago have 1,400 yards in a season and play every single game. So that didn't happen. That year, Debo Samuel wasn't the number one target in San Francisco. That just didn't happen, is what you're telling me. That's what you're telling me. When Debo Samuel was the number one guy in 2021, he didn't have 1,400 yards. That's what you're telling me. Is that what you're telling me? That's all I'm asking. Is that what you're telling me?
Bro, I'm not saying Debo was trash. I'm saying within the past 2 to 3 years, within the past 2 to 3 years, just because his production was high does not mean he was the number one guy. That does not mean he was the number one guy. He was top two. It was him and Kittle, and really it was three. Ayuk, Kittle, and Debo were equal in terms of.
I love this. No.
In terms of,
he's not listening. You just said in 2021, he's not a number one option.
No, it's okay.
That was 3 years ago, though. That was 3 years ago.
It's okay. Hey, that's okay. Listen, because he on Keith Lee's internet. No, it's okay. Shane Fordham, host of the No Shane with Shane podcast on Keith Lee's internet, just said that in 2021, Debo Samuel wasn't really the number one guy. I'm sorry. Debo Samuel led the team in receptions. He had 77 receptions. He was the only guy in the receiving corps to have over 100 targets, and he was the only guy in the receiving corps to have over 1,000 yards.
But he's not a number one option.
I didn't know that meant he wasn't number one option.
You're bringing up one season, which was his best season, the only season he has come remotely close to that, having a breakout year. You're using that one season to say that, oh yeah, Debo can do that same thing in this Commanders offense.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. What I said was, if you are a receiver, no matter who it is, if you're a receiver who is used to being the number one target, take the injuries and stuff away. When Debo Samuel is healthy, more often than not, Debo Samuel was in San Francisco.
He hasn't been the number one target since that year. Brandon Ayuk got significantly better after that year. George Kittle exists. George Kittle is alive, everybody. He's alive. So, he's on the 49ers. He was on the 49ers during that window.
So
then
in 2022,
Christian McCaffrey.
So
they
in 2022,
they also had probably arguably the most athletic fullback to ever play the game in Kyle Juszczyk.
So
like this offense was deep.
What are we talking about?
This
We're
offense
citing
was good.
fullbacks in 2025. In 2022,
First of all, that means that you're not watching ball if you don't think Kyle wasn't important to that offense.
I didn't say that he wasn't. All I said was, why are we citing? There's 2 fullbacks that play.
But that's my point. My point was that's how deep this offense was.
So
You're acting like Debo
2025
was the only guy that defenses had to worry about on the 49ers.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not at all what I'm saying. You really didn't clean your ears this morning. So in 2022, the year after he had 1,400 yards, Debo Samuel played in 13 games. Despite playing in 13 games, Debo Samuel was still second on the team in targets. He had 4 less catches than George Kittle did that year, and had 120 something less yards despite playing 2 less games. So if you want to sit here and tell me that if they play the same amount of games, Debo Samuel doesn't have more yards in 2022 than George Kittle, I have an issue with that. In 2023, Debo Samuel was third in targets. He had 1 less target that season than George Kittle. He also played 1 less game than George Kittle did that season. So again, if we're going to sit here and act like Debo Samuel is just some bum who no one had to care about, like he wasn't at the top of the depth chart.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
So
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say he was a bum. I didn't say he was a bum. I didn't say he was a bum. All I'm saying is you're coming at me as if Debo is this huge receiving yards threat when he hasn't been that type of guy since 2021. He is a catch and run, Swiss Army knife type of guy. He's not a guy who is going to tear the top off of a defense. He is not a guy that the Eagles are going to have to be worried about having 90 receiving yards.
This is the last thing I want to say. We're
not looking for him to be the number 1 option.
That's what you're saying. You're saying that Debo is going to have 90 yards against the Eagles because he's going to be now the number 2 on this Commanders offense.
So okay. So here's the thing, right? Like we can sit here and we can split hairs. We can do the semantics thing. Here's the reality of the situation. Debo Samuel played every game in 2021, and in every game in 2021 he had 1,400 yards. He led the team in targets.
Oh my gosh!
Let me finish. Let me finish. The very next year, despite playing 2 less games than George Kittle, he had 4 less targets than George Kittle did. So again, if he plays the same amount of games as George Kittle does, if he plays 15 games in 2022, if you don't think in 2022 Debo Samuel is a 1,000-yard receiver and leading the team in targets or second in targets, I don't know what to tell you. In 2023, Debo Samuel played, what am I looking at? Debo Samuel played in 15 games, 1 less game than George Kittle did. He had 1 less target than George Kittle did. He would have been a 1,000-yard receiver last season.
892 receiving yards in 2023. In 2022, he had 630. He didn't break 700 receiving yards the year after his breakout year. And last year, he had 670.
He played in 13
so if
games.
If he'd played all 16 games, he would have definitely had the same.
He played in 13 games.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there is a pattern here. He has multiple seasons where he misses a string of games, meaning he cannot stay healthy. Now, you're expecting me to believe that the same guy who wasn't able to stay healthy back then is going to be able to stay healthy now when he has more weight, on him clearly, which is more weight on his knees, more weight on his ankles.
Google is free. There have been 2 times in Debo Samuel's career that he hasn't played at least 15 games. 2 times. In 2020 and in 2022. Those are the only 2 years he didn't play at least 15 games. So he has a history of being injured.
He's been injured like the last 5 years.
Google is free, bro. Google is free. So it's free. It's a free app. When you buy a phone, it's loaded on there already. It's loaded on there.
So 15 games, 600 receiving yards. Am I supposed to be scared of that?
In 15 games.
Am I supposed to be scared? Let me know. Am I supposed to be scared? Am I supposed to be?
In 15 games,
my hand is still. Is it supposed to be shaking?
So okay. So you are looking at games to yards as if targets aren't also a thing. When targets matter, they do. Whether you like it or not, targets matter. So you can't get the yards if no one's throwing you the ball. If the 3 of us go up there right now and we're all lined out, and MJ's our quarterback, and MJ only throws Shane the ball. And MJ only throws Shane the ball. Guess who doesn't have yards? I don't get yards. Jerry doesn't get yards. Only Shane gets yards if only Shane has the ball being thrown to him. So all I'm saying to you is this. If you are going to sit here and pretend that Deebo Samuel, a healthy Deebo Samuel, with at least 81, getting at least 80 targets a game, isn't going to crack over 90 yards, as if he didn't have 3 games this season with at least 90 yards receiving, I'm questioning what's going on with what's happening up here in the head. You're acting like Deebo Samuel has just completely
First of all, they didn't play the Eagles last season. So you're bringing up that is that needs to be taken in, that needs to be considered. You're talking about performances he had when he was not playing the best defense in the NFL. You said it yourself that the Eagles could very well still be the best defense in the NFL this coming season.
Act like he can't get 90 yards.
So here's the tough part with this, right? So here's the tough part. This is why this is a no-win, because when I go back and I cite the last time Deebo Samuel played football against the Philadelphia Eagles and he went into Lincoln Financial and had 4 catches for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's what you do. You look up in the sky and you roll your eyes. So then when I say
no, I answered you. That defense was a totally different defense. That was the year. You're talking about the year we were the worst defense in the NFL. That's not proving your point. That means Deebo can dominate a trash defense.
So you can't have it both ways. Like, you can't have it both ways. It can't be I can't take a look at it. Hold on. Wait a second. You can't have it both ways. We can't sit here and ignore his 3 90-plus yard receiving games last season because he didn't play Philly. And then when I say, oh, well, he did this against them the last time he played them, your response is, oh, well, the defense sucks. So then if
everything you just said was facts.
So then
the last time Deebo played the Eagles at the Link, we were in the middle of a collapse. Arguably the worst collapse in NFL history. This defense led the league in passing yards allowed and passing touchdowns allowed. That's not an achievement. That's not an achievement that he cooked us. Our defense was garbage.
So again, this is why this is a no-win argument in your estimation, because we can't talk about the fact that Deebo Samuel had 3 games over 90 receiving yards last season because he didn't play Philly. Right. I can't talk about the fact that he had over 100 yards against Philly the last time he played them because the defense wasn't good. So if I go back to the game before that, that was in 2021, and now your response to me is, well, that was 4 years ago. Like, you have to pick one. At some point, you have to pick one. Either we can.
They're all wrong. It doesn't matter. All of those. It's because all of the points. Those aren't good points to use.
At some point, either we
your
can. Your
strongest argument is a performance that he had 4 years ago.
It's not actually. That's not my argument.
Your second argument is the game he had when the Eagles were clearly not as dominant as we are now.
This entire time, the argument is quite simple, because you started this off by saying Deebo's not the number 1 guy, which has been all I've been saying this entire time, that he's not the number 1 guy. Right. And last season when Deebo Samuel was the number 1 guy, he gave us 3 performances over 90 yards. That wasn't good enough for you. So we go to the year before that. That's not good enough for you because the defense wasn't good. So you go to the year before that when he was the number 1 guy, and that's too far away from you. So Shane, all I'm going to go back to is my original point, which is that Deebo Samuel has proven to us that when he is healthy, he is capable of getting you at least 90 yards in a football game as the number 2 guy on the football field. And if we're being honest, you listing out all the facts, the fact that they've got Kittle and Ayuk and Kyle Juszczyk of all people and Christian McCaffrey, that doesn't actually help your argument at all. It really doesn't. Because all it shows to you is that even on a really stacked roster, Deebo Samuel can still go get his. So if Deebo Samuel can go get his on a stacked offense, why wouldn't Deebo Samuel be able to go get his on an offense that really the only other talented guy as far as pass catching is concerned is Terry McLaurin? Because you just said you're not scared. You said you're not scared of Noah Brown. You said you're not scared of Luke McCaffrey, and no one's scared of Zach Ertz this close to 40. So again, which way do you want to have it? Do we want to give Deebo the credit he deserves as a guy who got his on a very talented roster and acknowledge that he's likely going to be able to do that much more, if not even more, on a roster that's not that talented? Or do we just want to sit here and acknowledge the fact that Deebo Samuel, more often than not, when he's on the same field with the Philadelphia Eagles, has a good game? Which one do we want to acknowledge?
First of all, performing on a stacked team is way easier than performing on a team that is not as stacked. Saquon Barkley is the perfect example of that. And Saquon Barkley, all pro caliber running back, generational talent. We see the difference in his production on the Eagles and the Giants. The
What's the
Eagles
number
are
one
more.
reason
Hold
why
on,
they're-
listen. Hold on. The Eagles are more of a stacked team. Field is stretched out more. You have more guys on the field defensively wise that you have to worry about on the opposing offense. AJ Brown, Smitty, Jalen Hurts in the backfield, Goddard, Jahan Dotson. You know, when he would get touches or targets, like you had other guys you had to worry about, which did make it easier for Saquon to succeed, especially behind that offensive line. If you're looking at Debo was in a system that allowed him to thrive. Like it was an easier, like if you had, like if say me and you were, so us three, right? We're playing pickup basketball. We're all 99 overalls. We're playing against another team that is not as talented. Us being 99 overalls, it's going to be easier for me to put up more shots, get more looks, because now the defense is spread out. They have to worry about all three of us. They can't double team me because that means Jerry's going to be open. They can't double team Jerry because that means Marcus is going to be open. That same math applies to this. You can't double team Brandon Ayuk a couple years ago on that 49ers team because now that opens up the field for Debo. You got to worry about Kittle as well. Oh, wait. C-Mac McCaffrey's in the mix now. Oh, wait. They got a more athletic quarterback and more accurate quarterback in the backfield now in Brock Purdy. The field is stretched. You don't have to focus as much on one. You can't focus too much on one guy because you have all this other talent to worry about that is on the field. So Debo being in the system that he was in with the play caller that he had in Kyle Shanahan, it was an easier system for him to cook in because there wasn't as much attention on him as there will be in Washington. So he's now going to a system that is not a trash team by any means. It's a team on the rise, but talent-wise, offensively, it is not nearly as deep as what the 49ers have been over the years. So Debo on the Commanders is going to be more of a focal point for defenses than he was on the 49ers because he is, by default, the number 2 guy. It's either going to be him or Terry McLaurin, which means Quinion is going to be on him for a majority of the game. Keely Ringo is going to be on him for a majority of the game. He's not going to be cooked. He's not going to be tearing the top off of the defense because of the safeties we have back there in Reed Blankenship, in Cooper DeJean, and then our linebackers. One who is a defensive player of the year this past season, and Zach Bond, fresh off the contract extension. Nakobe Dean, who should be healthy this coming season, but even if he's not, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., he's got it in his blood. You're talking about Debo on the Commanders is totally different than Debo on the 49ers. It's not going to be the same.
Just 2 quick things. I'm not going to say another word because I'm getting sick of this. First of all, you bring up Saquon Barkley as if Saquon Barkley didn't have 50 more carries than his best season in New York is ridiculous.
And why? Why? He got those carries because it was working. If he's cooking, feed him. If it's working,
I didn't say a word. I didn't say a word while you were talking. I sat here. I sat here with looks. I didn't say a word.
Saquon Barkley. You did. No, you did.
No, just now. I didn't say a word. I didn't say a word. I let you talk about Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Keely Ringo. No disrespect, but I did that. I listened to that. Listen, all I'm saying is this. In 2024, Saquon Barkley had 2,000 yards. Yes, unbelievable. 9th player ever to do it. He had 50 more carries on a better offensive line.
Why do you think that is?
So, hey, I didn't say a word.
But let me just ask you that, though. It doesn't, you don't think to ask that question, why did he get more carries?
So let me finish the point. I'm here. I'm in the thesis.
Go ahead. Do your thing.
So, Saquon Barkley, 50 more carries behind a better offensive line. If you don't think you take this Philly offensive line from this year and place it in New York and Saquon Barkley doesn't do the same thing, I have problems with that because every season that Saquon Barkley played,
you're saying if, but you can't do that. You can't take Eagles offensive line and put it in New York. That's an if stand statement.
Let me finish. We're talking about a level playing field is what we're talking about. The Saquon Barkley point isn't helpful because he got 50 more carries in Philly than he did in his best season in New York. 50 more carries. 50 more carries resulted in 700 more yards. That is a thing that happened. So now the other thing, and this is a question, it's a very simple question. It's a yes or no question. When he was in San Francisco, Deebo Samuel was getting paid to do 2 things. He was getting paid to catch the ball. He was getting paid to run the ball until Christian McCaffrey got there. Now that he's in Washington, will Deebo Samuel still be getting paid to catch the ball and run the ball? Yes or no? Is that still what he's going to be paid to do? Yes or no?
I mean,
no. Yes or no?
Game, though.
Oh, this is very simple. This is
his game. That's his game. How many? First of all, how many games did Brian Robinson Jr. miss this year? How many games did Austin Eckler miss this year? Both of them missed a significant amount of games this year, which is partly why Jaden Daniels was their leading rusher for a good part of the season. Their running backs aren't able to stay healthy consistently. When they are on the field, though, they're dangerous. They're a dangerous running back duo when they're healthy. But that's the thing. If they couldn't stay healthy last year,
time out.
That pattern, you don't think they're going to have to use Debo? You don't think they're going to have to use Debo the same way? That doesn't make sense.
Listen to me. I love this. So this is the second time now that you've said someone's missed a significant amount of time. Brian Robinson played 14 games last season. He had a career high in rushing yards.
How many did Austin Eckler play?
Sure, let's find out. We'll find out.
And Brian Robinson Jr. was used in rotation as well. Jeremy McNichols got a significant amount of carries as well. So they got so you don't think they would supplement that with Debo the way that's his game. Why do you think they brought
what's happening here.
Army knife?
What's happening here. This is what I've learned. What I've learned is that, and this is what happens when you work for news stations. You kind of pivot sometimes. I made a very simple point there. You said that Brian Robinson missed a significant amount of time. He played 14 games last season. He missed 3 games.
Yeah, but there were a few of those games he didn't finish the game. If you watch the game,
high in rushing yards. So if he finishes those games, he had 799 rushing yards last season, despite missing 3 games and not playing all of 2. So you don't think if he plays the rest of those games, he doesn't get closer to being a 1,000-yard receiver? A rusher? You don't think
I'm not saying that at all. I already told you when healthy, B-Rob is a dude. That's a guy. Like when he's
very simple, but these are very simple.
But you're saying if that doesn't matter because it didn't happen. Like it didn't happen. The fact is that he had lingering injuries he was dealing with this past season. Austin Eckler had lingering injuries he was dealing with this past season. He was also a much older back. Like that, I don't think that's not a good argument.
But you said Brian Robinson has missed a significant amount of time last season. Brian Robinson, in his career, has played 12, 15, and 14 games. That is who Brian Robinson is.
But not all of those 14. He didn't finish the game, all 14 of those games.
Okay, he didn't
always finish the game.
Okay, that's fine. I've acknowledged that. The only reason why Brian Robinson didn't play at least 14 games in his rookie season is because he got shot. And so he missed a large.
I'm not even talking about that, though. I'm talking about this past season.
Let me just finish a sentence. Because I'm not saying that you are. But what I'm saying is to use such a broad brush and to paint Brian Robinson Jr. as if he's this guy who's consistently missing games.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Literally said Brian Robinson Jr.
I said he. I didn't say he's known for that. I said this past season,
considerable amount of time
because he did. If you count the games that he missed and the games he didn't finish completely, that is a significant amount of time because some of the time that he missed was during the most important part of the season.
A third of the season is significant.
They're trying to secure their seed.
A third of the season
for a team that is fighting for a playoff spot, yes, that's significant. For a team that is fighting for a playoff spot, that is
33% out of 100 is significant.
Bro, for a team that is fighting for a playoff spot, yes. What are we talking about? We're not talking about the Seahawks. We're not talking about the Cardinals. We're talking about a team that was in the NFC Championship this year. Brian Robinson Jr. was their best running back.
Okay, so
him not playing when he did was costly to the Commanders.
Okay, so let's talk about it. So the Commanders entering week.
But we're getting off topic though. You see that though?
I can't respond because now we're getting off topic. What are we talking about?
Let me say this though. I am not saying that Brian Robinson is some liability. I have all the respect in the world. That's actually one of my favorite players on the Commanders team because of everything he's been through, the way he plays. I'm not saying he has a history of being injured. You asked me about last season. All I did was answer your question that he did miss key time last season.
That's okay. So
and you're trying to make that an argument as to why Debo won't be used as this multi-use guy as opposed to just being a pass catcher when Deebo has never been used like that in his career.
Well, here's the thing, right? But if you would have ever let me finish a sentence, I could have gotten to the connection.
Go ahead. I'll shut up until you finish. Go ahead.
Before Christian McCaffrey got there, Deebo Samuel was being used as a pass catcher and as a runner out of the backfield. Right. Then Christian McCaffrey got there, and Christian McCaffrey became the bell cow back. And the only time we ever saw Deebo Samuel consistently running the ball out of the backfield was if Christian McCaffrey wasn't available to do so. So what I'm saying to you is, if you have a backfield in Washington that has a guy in Brian Robinson Jr. who more often than not is going to play somewhere between 12, 13, 14 games, and you have a guy in Austin Ekeler who up until recently consistently played football games. It's not until these past 2 seasons where he wasn't playing at least 15 games consistently. So if that's who your backfield is, to just completely act like all of a sudden now Deebo Samuel is going to go back to being this guy who is catching balls out of the backfield as a receiver and also running out of the backfield, I have an issue with that because that's not indicative of the history of Deebo Samuel's career. It's not indicative of the history of Brian Robinson's career. It's also not indicative of the history of Austin Ekeler's career. They have 2 guys who more often than not are available. Austin Ekeler doesn't get paid the money that he got paid a couple years ago if he wasn't an available guy. There was a time when we talked about Austin Ekeler as being one of the best backs in the league, and health derailed that. Brian Robinson Jr. can be one of the best backs in the league. He's missed a little bit of time here and there. I won't sit here and deny that. But if we're going to act like all of a sudden Deebo Samuel's coming to the nation's capital and he's going to be splitting time out of the backfield and as a pass catcher, that's problematic. And again, even if that is the case, that still does not deny the fact that Deebo Samuel has proven consistently over his career as a number 2 guy, which has been the thing that we've been harping on for the past 45 minutes, that he can still consistently go out there and give you 90 yards in a game. So again, no matter how you slice it, to be so abundantly confident that Deebo Samuel can't go out there and give you 90 yards in 3 attempts against the Eagles.
It's crazy.
When history doesn't support that at all, no matter what context, no matter what dressing you want to put around it, doesn't make any sense. Deebo Samuel is a guy who in 1 of 3 attempts can for sure go out there and give you 90 yards. And I look forward to the day that I get to come back on this show and see you in a Washington Commanders Deebo Samuel jersey. I look forward to that. I really do.
He's in denial, but
you right. Philly fans, y'all hard-headed. Y'all don't like
it's Philly and Cowboys fans the most.
I'm going to Marcus, I want to respond to your point, and then Jerry, I'm gonna pass it to you for last remarks, and then we'll go to our next and last topic. But one, Marcus, I understand everything you are saying, and I don't want this to be misconstrued at all in terms of me trying to disrespect Austin Ekeler and B-Rob, because I've been advocates for those 2 really all this season. I mean, I had them as being one of the best running back duos in the NFL. Austin Ekeler being a dual threat back, Brian Robinson Jr. being more of a north to south guy, head down, shoulders down, takes about 3 guys to tackle him, one of the best running backs after contact. Like, I know who we're talking about, but all I'm saying is that if it's like what happened last year, if B-Rob misses key time, even though it wasn't a lot of time, it was key time where he was not on the field. Same goes with Austin Ekeler. I can imagine that they would use Deebo as a supplementary piece the same way they did in San Francisco. And it's really, that's exactly how they used him even when C-Mac was on the team. It may have been not as much. It definitely wasn't as much with C-Mac and Elijah Mitchell, but there were still key moments where Deebo was either lined up in the backfield, just going straight for a handoff, or if it was a sweep sort of motion behind the line of scrimmage play. Like, there are going to be moments where Deebo is going to be used as a multi-tool, multi-use guy. But even if he's not, like you said, when C-Mac was on the squad, he was the predominant ball carrier. Even with that, Deebo still wasn't a huge threat receiving wise, just receiver wise. He didn't break 1K yards. He didn't break 900 yards. You talked about his most recent healthy season, which was 2023. He had 892 receiving yards. That's just ball catching. That's just ball catching.
How many games did he play?
That's just ball catching.
How many games did he play?
He was healthy. That was the year they went to the Super Bowl. What do you mean? That was the year they went to the Super Bowl.
How many games did he play?
Oh my God.
How many games did he play? Please answer me this. How many games did he play?
The year they went to the Super Bowl.
I won't care if they went to the moon. How many games did he play?
For 2023, Marcus?
How many yards? How many yards did we say? Let's just do some simple math. How many yards was it? Did you say it was?
He played 15 games.
How many
He played
yards
15. He played 15 games, Marcus.
How many yards did he play? How many yards did he have? How many yards did you say?
He had 892 yards.
Okay, and what was his yards per game? What was his yards per game?
What difference? What
Answer the question, Shane.
What difference does that make?
Answer the question.
What difference does that make?
I'm going to tell you if you just tell me how many yards per game he averaged. That's all I'm asking for. How many yards per game did he average? You're on ESPN. What are we doing?
He averaged 59 yards per game.
He averaged 59 receiving yards per game.
59 receiving yards per game.
Great. So he wasn't the number one guy. That was the year they went to the Super Bowl, which means in all likelihood, Deebo Samuel missed one game because they rested starters the last week of the season. So if Deebo Samuel, again, this is really simple math. Deebo Samuel plays all 17. He's a 1,000-yard receiver. That still doesn't erase the fact that my original point.
But you can say that about anybody. You can say that about a guy that's on the bench. If this guy started all 17 games of the NFL season, he would have this amount of numbers.
So Olamide Zaccheaus would have been a 1,000-yard receiver
like that. That's not a good argument to use.
Olamide Zaccheaus
about
would have been a
anybody.
1,000-yard receiver last year, is what you're telling me. Olamide Zaccheaus would have been 1,000. That's the logic you just gave me.
That's what he just said. It's like he's changing it every time.
It's in the same. It's in the same grounds though. Like that's you saying. What if I'm going off of facts? I'm going off of what we saw.
Listen,
I'm going off of what we saw. What we saw on the field. What we the actual fabric of what we saw in real life. I'm not talking about imaginary. You're talking about imaginary stats right now.
For Shane, because you're my guy, and because we're homies, I like to think. Right? I like to think we're homies. You're my guy. Yep. What I'm going to do is when we're done, I'm going to take this entire hour and 2 minutes of us having this conversation, and I'm going to find the very best NFL groundskeepers, and I'm going to submit this with your resume and let them know that if they want to find the best goalpost mover on the east of the Mississippi, they can call Shane Fordham. Because the only person I know that lives on this side of the Mississippi that has moved the goalpost more than you have tonight is Stephen A. Smith. I can't believe how much maneuvering you've done tonight to just when all we can do is just agree on the simple premise that Deebo Samuel is capable of getting 90 yards in a football game.
I didn't say he wasn't capable of getting 90 yards in a football game. I said he's not going to get 90 yards in a football game against the Birds. Against the Birds. He's not doing that against the Birds. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's going to be trash.
As the honest, integral man you are, I want you to clip that. I want you to post on your socials.
100%.
And as soon as we come back and as soon as it happens, I want you to post it on your Instagram.
100%.
I want you to buy the jersey 100%. So that I can come back and I can gloat.
I'll make sure that Quinion
making good football sense.
I'll make sure that Quinion jersey is ready for you too. I'm gonna order one for myself. Jerry, I'm gonna toss it to you for final thoughts on the topic, and then we'll move on to the last topic. We gotta make it quick.
Everything you said the last hour has been right. I've agreed with everything you said, and of course Shane is obviously so Eagles. I get it, but we're not obviously saying that. And I'll just reiterate, we're not saying Deebo Samuel is like, oh, he's about to be the number one guy, he's about to do everything. We're just explaining he is an option for those Commanders, and we can't disrespect him as if he's not. So with your no,
I didn't say that.
Stop. No, stop. Because you did this with Marcus, you're not going to do it with me.
I didn't say that though. I didn't say he wasn't going to be an option. I said he was a weapon for them.
Just listen. He's not going to be an option.
Shane has webbed this massive.
He's changed the goalpost.
He's sown this massive web of lies. He doesn't even know what to believe anymore. Let's talk about what the best and worst free agency moves are so we can get out of here, man. It's almost 9:30. Let's come on. Let's
all right, yeah. This is the last topic. I got to go to bed, bro, because y'all. I mean, I'm tired. I'm tired dealing. I'm tired dealing with the
goalpost moving you've been doing.
You were changing the question every time, but. I'm not.
You got to pick up the goalpost, put it down. You got to move it to the 15.
Wait,
Yeah, put it at
Marcus,
50.
Marcus,
Nope, not put it at 30.
Marcus,
That's a lot
the
of
craziest,
movement.
Marcus, the craziest thing was, that was 5 years ago, but not.
Hey, man, what's the next topic, bro? Come on, what's the next topic?
Speaking of Debo, we had three notable receivers this year who went to new teams, new destinations, new situations. D Hop playing in Baltimore this offseason. Debo, of course, in DC. And then, of course, Davante Adams moving out to LA to play with Matt Stafford, all playing with elite to semi-elite quarterbacks in the NFL. Out of those three guys, Jerry, we'll start with you. Which of those three guys do you think is more likely to have a breakout year this season?
Just keep it short, but I think the breakout season would be from Davante Adams. And I say that because, he's obviously in a new system. He has a chance to win. I think that you're smiling. I think that, with a guy in Matthew Stafford who's not afraid to throw the ball, you have a guy in D-Hop and Davante Adams who's an amazing route runner who can find a way to get open, and he's going to be able to put some numbers up this year. So I think the breakout season will be from Davante Adams. You have a guy in Sean McVay who is an amazing offensive mind. So when you have that in the mixture, and you have Cooper, whatever. So you have those two pieces, and you have Sean McVay, breakout year for sure.
Marcus.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if we can call Davante Adams having a breakout season, though. I mean, he's had 1,000 yards in 6 of his last 7 seasons. And the year that he didn't have 1,000 yards was in 2019. He had 997. I don't think he played all 8 games for us that year as well. So he probably would have had 1,000 that, but I forgot. Shane doesn't like ifs, so we'll stick to the facts. Facts are Davante Adams in 6 of the last 7 seasons has had 1,000 yards. You look at this football team in the Los Angeles Rams, they are going to be a pass-first football team. But what's more importantly than that, though, is that this is not a system that Davante is unfamiliar with. You have to keep in mind, Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Green Bay Packers, has also come from a similar coaching style that Sean McVay had kind of really made famous over the past couple of years, obviously during his time in LA. I think more importantly than that, though, and the reason why I won't look at a guy like a Deebo Samuels or why I won't even look at a guy like a DeAndre Hopkins as having a breakout year necessarily is because Davante Adams at this point in his career is still one of the better receivers in the league. Obviously, as Jerry mentioned, he's probably the best route runner in the NFL at this point.
It's art.
And it's an art, and it's beautiful. Now, I know that his last season, his year was a little bit tainted. He only had 18 catches in Vegas before he went over to New York, and he kind of blossomed there. He ended up with just around 70 catches, I believe, by the time the season was over. And things did get a little bit shaky for him last season, but there is a guy in Matt Stafford who belongs in the Hall of Very Good. And he might end up being in the Hall of Fame after a couple of attempts, but he's certainly a guy that Davante Adams is familiar playing with or playing against, right? There's not a lot of differences mechanics-wise, talent-wise, ability-wise between Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford. The main difference, of course, is Aaron Rodgers takes care of the football better than any quarterback we've ever seen, except for, I guess, Patrick Mahomes up until recently, right? But when you look at a guy in Matt Stafford who can make all the throws that Aaron Rodgers can make, who has as strong of an arm, if not probably stronger as Aaron Rodgers, who is probably, I would say, maybe a little bit more accurate. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that accuracy for their careers around the same. Like, there's a lot of familiarity here for Davante Adams. And so when you put Davante Adams in LA alongside of Puka Nacua, that to me is a top 7 wide receiver duo in the league. And that to me is a situation where Davante Adams can do what he's been looking for the past couple of seasons, have stability at the quarterback position and win you football games. So I don't know if I'd call it a breakout season because we've seen Davante Adams be at the very best, be one of the very best in the business for the past almost decade now. But if you're asking who's going to have the best season, I would say it's him. He's in the best situation to have the best season.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it because it's hard to say. Just by definition, breakout means something we have never seen from this player before.
Right.
And if one thing has been a constant with Davante Adams, it's that he knows how to ball. Like he knows, like he's a consistently 1K over 1K pass catcher, and a healthy Davante Adams is the best receiver in the NFL. I think he's fighting for that top spot. A healthy Davante Adams. He's fighting for that top spot with Jettas and Jamar Chase.
There's a comment in here that says change the title to Insane with Shane, and he literally sent that as soon as you said that. I cannot believe You just said
Devontae,
that.
a healthy Devontae Adams.
A healthy Devontae Adams is
right now, Shane.
A healthy Devontae Adams.
Right now,
I think is in the conversation for top one. In the conversation. I'm not saying he clears, but it's definitely a conversation. A healthy Devontae Adams. At one point, he was the best receiver in the NFL.
Devontae Adams healthy at the ripe age of how old is he?
32.
The ripe age.
I'm not saying he's the best receiver now.
I know.
I'm saying an overall healthy Devontae Adams has a case for the best receiver in the NFL.
Devontae Adams healthy at the ripe age of 32 will be 33 in December. Healthy Devontae Adams is at best the 5th best receiver in football. Let's not act like there's not a
I'm not gonna argue with you on that because there is a lot of elite talent. I mean, you got to think about CD. You got to think about obviously Jamar and Jay Jettis. I think AJ Brown has kind of nudged his way into that combo, top 5 combo. But my point is that Devontae Adams is one of the elite. And I think because there has been a lot of sort of slander on him recently towards a recency bias where, his decline in production. People are saying, he's on the verge of being washed. He's on his team when he hasn't really been in it. He really hasn't had a healthy QB1 since Kyler. If you think about it. No, not Kyler. Sorry. I'm thinking about D-Hop. He hasn't had a healthy QB1 since he last played with Aaron Rodgers.
That was a great man.
He's been able to produce with Derek Carr briefly, quarterbacks like what's his name? Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew for a little bit, a washed version of Aaron Rodgers. I think now that we have a healthy Devontae Adams playing with an elite quarterback like Matt Stafford, who in my opinion does have a case to be a Hall of Famer right now. If he were to retire today, does have a case to be a Hall of Famer right now. Yeah. With everything Matt Stafford is able to do, if he has the protection that he needs, I think Devontae Adams could definitely have the best season out of those 3 guys in comparison to Debo, definitely in comparison to D-Hop. And then, Jerry, I like the point you brought up, being in the offense that he's in, playing on the opposite sides of the field from a guy like Puka.
And the field is going to be well.
Yeah. He can move around, but having another pass catcher like Puka, who is more, I think at this stage, a little more potent than Devontae, but having another guy on the field like that now stretches the field out more. I think it's going to open up the field. I think this is going to be the most spread of a field he's had since, honestly, Green Bay. Having both a capable quarterback and then another number 1 receiver in Puka.
It's funny because, granted, this pickup kind of revitalizes his career in a sense because he's on a team where they have a chance to win. They're not a bad team. He has a chance to win. He has an amazing quarterback who's willing to throw the ball, like I said earlier. But now it gives the offense. So, see, usually the last couple of years they were playing inside out because they didn't have a number 1. Or not a number 1. They didn't have that guy that can go over the top, that can, route run like, Devontae Adams. Now that you have that as an addition, now you can play from the outside in. And it's crazy because he can play slot. So he's very versatile. So that's one special outlook you got to look on this as well.
Yeah, definitely. Any closing remarks before we wrap up? It's nice to see that we are able to come to somewhat of an understanding.
Yeah, when you're using your brain, absolutely. Using that common sense. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that's all we got for today's edition of No Shame with Shane. If you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms. And I will be back later on with more shameless takes. Fellas, I appreciate you.
Peace and blessings.